Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is 27th lecture of the course on Introduction to Research and Methodology. In this lecture, we are going to discuss the sample size determination, how the sample of what numbers or volumes or of what size the sample has to be taken. That is, what should be the size of the sample that we are going to study. Today's lecture is concerned with that. It comes to our mind, to any researcher, that how many persons, how many members, how many items should be chosen in the sample, should be included in the sample. That is, of course, how big or how small the sample should be to be representative of the population. As we are already aware that the sample has to be taken in such a way that it is representative of the characteristics of the whole of the population, because the findings and conclusions that are arrived by working by on the sample is generalized for the whole of the population, and this is why it is a very serious issue. So there are various peoples have recommended various size also, and there are various formulas also to determine the size of the sample. What should be the size of the sample that it really truly represents the population in all its characteristics? So, some people say that the common size is 1/10 of the whole population, total population. Some others say it should be minimum of 100 subjects, 100 items, 100 persons to allow correct statistical inference. However, these cannot be generalized to be a general rule. First, we shall be discussing what considerations or what points should be taken, must be taken into consideration while deciding the size of the sample. So, as we are observing that populations are sometimes very large, populations are sometimes large, population are sometimes small and sometimes very small. So in all, and sometimes of course infinite. So in all those cases where we are going to do a study or which is concerned with our study, we have to be careful in selecting the or in deciding the size of the sample. So, the first thing that we should have in our mind or we should check from the population, that what is the size of the population itself. Whether it is infinite, if suppose we have to study the salinity of any ocean or any river or say any sea, then of course the population here is infinite. But if suppose we have to study the satisfaction level of students from the education system in India, then it is a very large population. But if suppose we are studying the level of satisfaction of students from teaching at any university, then also the size of the population is large, because any university will have thousands of students. So, and even many universities like Delhi universities or IGNOU, they have the students in lakhs. So, we have to identify this. Or suppose we want to study the satisfaction level of the students in the faculty of social sciences of say Aligarh Muslim University or say Jawaharlal Nehru University or Delhi University or Banaras Hindu University. So, if it is so, then the faculty in faculty also there are large number of students. Of course, it is not very large, but they are still large. They may be in thousands. Now, we come to the study of the satisfaction level of students in a department. This may be considered as a small population, because in a department, if there are 300, 400 students, then it must be considered as a small population. Whereas if we are studying the satisfaction level of the students by teaching in a class, so a class may be having 20 to 60 students, that may be considered as very small population. So, we have to keep in mind what type of population, what size of population we are dealing with. This has an important implication for the size of the sample. Then the next thing that we should keep in mind is whether the population is homogeneous. What do we mean by homogeneous? Homogeneous means they are of the similar type, and the opposite to this is heterogeneous. Heterogeneous is of different types. So, it again depends upon homogeneity or heterogeneity of the population. Why? Because if the population is of say similar type, then the sample that we take or make to study this population can be taken as a small sample also. Even a small sample may suffice because of the homogeneity, high homogeneity or high similarity among the members or items of the population. But if there is lot of heterogeneity or difference in the characteristics of the members of the population, then of course there cannot be the larger sample is required. For example, if we are studying the satisfaction of, say, the faculty of medicine, how the students they are satisfied or not, or how much with the teaching in the faculty of medicine. Then in the faculty of medicine, the students are similar, they are not different. They are doing MBBS or MD or MS. So the nature of them is more homogeneous than as compared to, say, faculty of arts, where we have philosophy also, we have Hindi also, we have Sanskrit also, we have Urdu also, we have Persian also, we have Pali also, we have Arabic also. So we have in the faculty of humanities, arts and humanities, and even the fine arts is also there. So we have very lot of variation in the faculty of arts as compared to faculty of medicine. Faculty of arts consists of dozens of subjects, whereas faculty of medicine is concerned with one subject, that is medicine. So the faculty of medicine as a population or universe will be considered more homogeneous as compared to faculty of arts, where there is more heterogeneity in the population. So in the faculty of medicine, comparatively a small size of sample would suffice, whereas in faculty of arts this is not going to suffice because of the heterogeneous nature or different nature of different departments in the faculty of arts. This is a very simple example to distinguish between the homogeneity and heterogeneity. So if a population is highly homogeneous, a small sample can suffice. If a population is not so, it is more heterogeneous, then a small sample will not suffice. One has to go for a large size of the sample, bigger size of the sample. That is very important. Then next is the purpose of a study. What is the purpose of a study? Is it exploratory? Is it formulative? It is explanatory? Is it descriptive? Is it diagnostic? Or it is hypothesis testing research? So in all this, the nature of the study also matters for the making of the size of the sample, because if it is hypothesis testing, these days we are working on the computers with the help of the softwares, So the large number of sample can easily be dealt with because it has all to be put in the software and the results have to be obtained. Whereas if the research is exploratory or explanatory, then we are not going to even have large size of the data or the population. So it again depends upon the problem of research, what kind of problem you are having, where in which type of study it fits in, that the size of the sample is determined. Further, whether the study is qualitative or quantitative, that also matters for determining the size of the sample. In qualitative studies, sampling does not resort to numerical boundaries to determine the size of the sample. It is quite different from the quantitative, whereas in quantitative we have to set up the sample size and do things accordingly, proceed for research accordingly. That is what it says. The next is the accessibility of the elements. Many times it is difficult to contact respondents at a time and place convenient to the researcher. Then if there are, if suppose we are working on the Indian migrant workers who have come back from the Gulf countries, we want to study their integration, reintegration rather, in the economy and society. After they have come back spending 2 decades, 3 decades of job in those countries, how do they adjust here? The population is spread all over India. So it will be naturally difficult to contact all of them everywhere. This is where the size of this also impacts the size of the sample. Because the accessibility to respondents is not convenient. But the research has to be done. The problem has to be researched upon. So the size of the sample again depends upon the accessibility to the members, to the elements, to the items of the population. Further, cost of obtaining elements or cost of obtaining response from the members of the population does also make an important impact on the sample size. So if we have large resources and adequate number of investigators can be appointed, then the large sample may be considered. But if the resources are limited, as is usual, normally the resources are not unlimited, they are limited, and in fact this is why we are going for the sample. So this is one reason why we go for the sample. So whether there is budget for employing large number of investigators or only a few can be employed, that also impacts and influences the size of the population, rather size of the sample that is going to be taken from the sample, from the population. So the large sample may be taken if we can employ a large number of surveyors, but normally it is limited. So it has an impact, influence on the making of size of the sample from the population. Then the next criteria is next factor that influences the sample size is that at times the respondents are required to be from different groups, that is different age, different income, different educational background, different occupations, and so on. So this would also impact, because there are varieties of the respondents. We require responses from different income groups. We require responses from different educational backgrounds, different occupations, maybe different region. So this has also an influence on the making of the sample or the size of the sample, because if they are of the same kind, then it would be easy to have a small size of population. But as many different groups are to be considered, to be included in the sample, the sample size would increase. A small sample would not be enough, would not be satisfactory, would not suffice, and as many groups we have to collect the data from as many groups in the population. If they are as many, so what happens? This influences the size of the sample. If suppose we have to collect the data, say from only different age groups, so a smaller sample size can suffice. Whereas if this increases to say 4, 5, 6, 7 kind of groups, then we have to be careful, and all of those type have to be given representation in the sample, and so a small sample is not going to suffice. We in this context where there are large number of respondents of very large number of different groups, we have to have a large size of the sample. then of course the desired accuracy or the confidence level is also very important. What does it mean? For high degree of accuracy, large sample needs to be drawn, because as we have discussed in some of the lectures, if it is a census survey, that is taking the information from every member or every item, then there is no problem because everybody has been included, so the desired accuracy is 100%, or the confidence level is very high, or say 100%. But of course the whole exercise of sampling is done because we cannot study so much large populations through the census survey because of the limitations of time and limitations of the resources. And so this is why we resort to the sampling. So if a high degree of accuracy is required, then large sample needs to be drawn. So one has to first decide the level at which one would feel confident that his sample is representative. Frequently 99%, 98%, or even 95% confidence level is chosen, meaning that one anticipates that there is 99% chance that the sample and the population will look alike, and only 1% chance that it will not, meaning that there is 98% chance that the sample and the population would look alike, and only 2% chance that it would not. Further, meaning that 95% chance that the sample and the population would look alike, and 5% chance that it will not. So 99% is very strict, even 98%. People keep it at 95% also, but not less than 90%. Even 90% is considered as lenient confidence level. What does it mean? That there are the 90% confidence level means that there are 90% chances that the sample and the population would look alike, and only 10% chance that it would not. But this level of confidence is considered as lenient. So one should better, and of course 99% is very strict. So basically the advisable is that one should limit his or her confidence level to 95%. So again, this choice of the confidence level is also dictates or determines the size of the sample, because as much we increase the confidence level, that is the similarity of the population and the sample size would grow. So the confidence level also is an important determining factor for the sample size. The next is the sampling error or desired risk level. The minimum sampling error and the maximum decides the sample's representativeness. For example, the study of parents, whether they want to send their children to English medium, private schools or to government schools, we are studying that. So, if the average annual family income of parents in the area in which the study is to be conducted, say is 40,000, then the researcher must make sure that the sample's average income is also close to 40,000 as far as possible. So, the smaller the percentage error, the greater the chance of proving that the income is one factor that affects parents' choices. So, what we observed here, that the sample mean must be closer to the population mean. This was an example of the parents with income group, but it can be extended for any kind of population. So, in short, in brief, the mean of the sample size, mean of the sample must be closer to the mean of the population. As much it is closer, as much it represents the population, and as much it is farther, as much it represents the dissimilarity with the of the sample with the population. So, this has to be taken under consideration. Then the next is the stratification, that is how many times the sample has to be divided during the data analysis. This is to ensure an adequate size for each subdivision. In stratified sampling, the researcher has to draw a sample having some characteristics as a population. So, in the study of parents willing to send their children to private or government schools, if the total population of parents, if 75% have annual income of over 40,000 and 25% less than Rs 40,000, the researcher should be sure that his sample also has the same distribution of income. So, the distribution of the sample must be similar of the population. That is what here we mean. We have given the example here that those parents who constitute more of the income group in the percentage terms, and less also in the percentage terms, the same percentage has to be maintained in the sample size. That is called the distribution of the sample size must be very similar to the distribution of the data in the population. So, that was the those were the most of the factors which have been responsible for the determination of the sample size. However, some statisticians have given the formulas also, mathematical formulas also, to in fact determine the size of the sample. Here first we discuss the Solvin's formula, which determine the sample size. The formula is small n is equal to capital N by 1 plus capital N into E square, where n is the total population and E is the error or confidence level. Considering a total population of size of 1000 and a confidence level of 95%, that is the error being 0.05%. So, error being 5% rather. So, we can of course put this formula here. So, what we find that for 1000 sample population, the sample needed is 286. Now, considering a population of 10,000, we put the error is again 5%, that is 0.05. So, we put the required numbers in the formula and we find that by solving it that there is the sample size should be at 385. These are very simple arithmetic deductions and there is no problem in arriving or calculation of these formulas. Then again we have another example where the sample size for infinite population is given by capital S is equal to capital Z squares into capital P into 1 minus P by M square, where S is equal to sample size for infinite population, Z is equal to Z score, which is provided by the table depending upon confidence level, which is available in all the statistics books. P is the population portion and M is equal to margin of error. We put here these in this table. We have example, we have given it the error is 5%, that is at the 95% confidence level. 0.05 would be the error, whereas the confidence level we find from the table at this error margin of error Z is equal to 1.960 and the population proportion, which is normally kept at 0.5, is assumed at 50%. So, now we put all this data in the required along with the required in the required equation, and then we calculate to find that the 385 samples are enough for the sample. Then the same thing is, so we have discussed all the ingredients of the or the factors that influence the size of the sample, and also we have discussed some of the formulas which are not very difficult to follow for determining the size of the sample, which should suffice to represent the characteristics of the population. I wish I have been able to make you clear the sample size determination. Thank you very much.